Hello, my viewers, and welcome back. I was supposed to release a video this week on more COVID stuff, but as it turned out, there's been a rather interesting development happening in Europe during the Europe Economic Summit, or whatever it was called, or European Union Summit, rather. And I want to touch on that today because one of the things that I've been saying, but along with many other people have been saying, is how much of an embarrassment our leader, Prime Minister Trudeau, is to this country. He tells you all kinds of silly little things, and can't answer a simple question. All the usual garbage. But what happened in Europe was just, I have no words for that. Looks like the Europeans have his number, because they made no bones about calling him what he is, and that is a dictator. So this video is going to be on that subject matter, but I want to refresh your memory a little bit here, because this is why they called him a dictator, among other things. One of the things, of course, was him invoking the Emergency Measures Act. Basically, that is a suppression of one's rights. Here's a video of him saying that.
After discussing with Cabinet and Caucus, after consultation with premiers from all provinces and territories, after speaking with opposition leaders, the federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations. I want to be very clear. The scope of these measures will be time-limited, geographically targeted, as well as reasonable and proportionate to the threats they are meant to address. The Emergencies Act will be used to strengthen and support law enforcement agencies at all levels across the country. This is about keeping Canadians safe, protecting people's jobs, and restoring confidence in our institutions. Here's how the measures we're taking today will help get the situation under control. The police will be given more tools to restore order in places where public assemblies can constitute illegal and dangerous activities, such as blockades and occupations, as seen in Ottawa, the Ambassador Bridge, and elsewhere. These tools include strengthening their ability to impose fines or imprisonment. The government will designate, secure, and protect places and infrastructure that are critical to our economy and people's jobs, including border crossings and airports. We cannot and will not allow illegal and dangerous activities to continue. The Emergencies Act will also allow the government to make sure essential services are rendered, for example, in order to tow vehicles blocking roads. In addition, financial institutions will be authorized or directed to render essential services to help address the situation, including by regulating and prohibiting the use of property to fund or support illegal blockades. And finally, it will enable the RCMP to enforce municipal bylaws and provincial offences where required. This is what the Emergencies Act does. Let me be equally clear about what it does not do. We're not using the Emergencies Act to call in the military. We're not suspending fundamental rights or overriding the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We are not limiting people's freedom of speech. We are not limiting freedom of peaceful assembly. We are not preventing people from exercising their right to protest legally. We are reinforcing the principles, values, and institutions that keep all Canadians free.
Now, we also have him telling you in another video that if you protest COVID, you are breaking the law. Now, I got to tell you, I've looked through that criminal code, left, right, and center, up, front to back, top to bottom, and I got to tell you, I couldn't find a single act in there in the criminal code related to COVID with anything, a statute number, an act number, this, that. There's nothing in there that says protesting COVID is a criminal act. Protesting, in fact, is one of our charter rights. But according to this jackass Trudeau, if you protest COVID, you are breaking the law. Don't take my word for it. Here's the video of him saying that.
I want to make something very clear. The illegal blockades seeking to take our neighborhoods and our economy hostage, and the collective COVID fatigue we are facing, are two very separate things. If you joined the protests because you're tired of COVID, you now need to understand that you are breaking laws. The consequences are becoming more and more severe. You don't want to end up losing your license, end up with a criminal record, which will impact your job, your livelihood, even your ability to travel internationally, including to the US. We've heard your frustration with COVID, with the measures that are there to keep people safe. We've heard you. It's time to go home now.
There you go. Then, of course, we have our wonderful Deputy Prime Minister, and here I'm going to send a couple things of what she says here. One, of course, if you speak out against Trudeau in protest, you know, your accounts will be frozen. There's a video of that I'll post in a minute. Then, of course, she wants to seize your accounts because if you're protesting. Now, keep in mind, there's been nothing illegal going on in this trucker protest, but she decided that she wants to seize her assets. Here's a video of that.
So let me repeat what I said on Monday. If your truck is being used in these protests, your corporate accounts will be frozen. The insurance on your vehicle will be suspended. The consequences are real, and they will bite. It is time for you to go home. And let me also be clear that we will have zero tolerance for the establishment of new blockades or occupations. We now have the tools to follow the money. We can see what is happening and what is being planned in real time. And we are absolutely determined that this must end now and for good. In terms of the financial instruments which our government is using right now to act against these illegal blockades and illegal occupation, we reviewed very, very carefully the tools at the disposal of the federal government. And we used all the tools that we had prior to the invocation of the Emergencies Act, and we determined that we needed some additional tools. Now, some of those tools, we will be putting forward measures to put those tools permanently in place. The authorities of FinTrack, I believe, do need to be expanded to cover crowdsourcing platforms and payment platform and their payment providers. So that is something that we need to do, and we will do, and that needs to be in place permanently. Some of these other tools, like the sharing of information between law enforcement and financial services, and the requirement of financial services to be reviewing their accounts proactively, and the immunity from prosecution that we have provided to them in doing this. These are extraordinary measures that we absolutely believe are necessary in the current circumstances, that are having an impact, and let me also point out, having a peaceful impact. And the other aspect of the financial tools that I would point to as being really effective and important is being clear that insurance on trucks that participate in these illegal occupations and blockades will be suspended. So we didn't have those tools. I don't believe that those tools should be part of the toolbox of a government in ordinary times, but they are necessary in these extraordinary circumstances, and they are having a very clear impact.
Then Trudeau decides, and this particular one is in French, but it's got the English subtitles in it. Then he decides, this is Trudeau again, on deciding that, if you're unvaccinated, you are a racist and a misogynist. He actually said this crap. How do you even make a comeback to that kind of stupidity? I mean, this guy is a few cookies short of a dozen, obviously. Now, by the way, yeah. Speaking of that, yeah, here's a video of him saying that. Because if I tell you this, it's one thing, but yeah, you just got to see for yourself.
Oui, on va s'en sortir de cette pandémie par la vaccination. Puis on en connaît tous des gens qui sont en train d'hésiter un petit peu. On va continuer d'essayer de les convaincre. Mais il y a aussi des gens qui sont farouchement opposés à la vaccination.
Qui sont extrémistes.
Qui ne croient pas dans la science, qui sont souvent misogynes, souvent racistes aussi. C'est un petit groupe, mais qui prend de la place. Et là, il faut faire un choix en tant que leader, en tant que pays. Est-ce qu'on tolère ces gens-là ou est-ce qu'on dit, voyons, la plupart des gens, presque 80% des Québécois ont fait ce qu'il fallait faire, se sont fait vacciner, on veut revenir aux choses qu'on aime faire. C'est pas ces gens-là qui vont nous bloquer maintenant.
Now, Trudeau's going around saying, that, the trucker protest was this, it was illegal, it was that, it was violent. Hang on a second. Here's a chief of the Winnipeg Police, because the trucker protest was over there too, in one of the border towns there. Quote, the truck protest was no threat. Here's a video of him saying that.
I think this becomes a bit of a political discussion, not a police discussion. I think there are going to be people, whenever there's a protest, who are not happy with the position of the protesters. And I think in the climate we live in now in 2022, there's a fair degree of polarization. I can tell you that while people have made comments that they do not feel safe downtown, we have officers who are on scene 24/7. I've personally spoken to many of those officers who have said consistently the same message, that this is one of the most reasonable and most welcoming group of protesters they've ever encountered. That is from frontline uniform officers standing on Memorial up into including senior officers who've been in negotiations with the leaders. So while I understand that people are saying they're not happy and some people feel that the situation is intimidating, I think that is not to be unexpected when people hold vastly differing views, but that does not mean that the feelings of intimidation are actually based on reality or actually what police and law enforcement would view as intimidating. And we see examples of intimidating behavior all the time. I think we are pretty good at being able to assess the difference between what is in fact real intimidating behavior and what are perceptions. And I don't want to minimize those perceptions, but we can't alter people's perceptions. Our attempt is to keep everybody safe, and we've been able to do that.
So far we have Trudeau saying one thing, but the people who are on the ground, like such as police chiefs, they're kind of important. They're saying something else. Hey, oh, you're going to love this one too. A Liberal member of Parliament, and I kid you not, actually saying that if you go honk honk, it's really saying Heil Hitler. These are liberals. I don't even know what to say to this anymore. But here's a video for saying that, you know.
How much vitriol do we have to see of honk honk, which is an acronym for Hail Hitler, do we need to see by these protesters on social media? How much, how many times?
Okay, so Trudeau wastes time in the European Parliament. Now, I was gonna start off with what the parliamentarians there were saying about him, but I'm actually gonna skip that or move that around a little bit. Here is Trudeau's speech at the European Economic Summit. Listen to this.
These are anxious times, and people are looking for leadership and solutions. Unfortunately, we're seeing a rise in cynical populists who are trying to exploit these anxieties. They pretend to have easy solutions that play on people's fears. Even in Canada, where 90% of people are vaccinated, and our motto as a country is peace, order, and good government, we saw anti-vaccine and anti-government protests devolve into illegal occupations of our communities and blockades of our borders. The leaders of those convoys were effective in turning citizens with real anxieties against the system best suited to allay those concerns.
So you saw the video. Now, we've already heard from the police chief that there was no threat, no criminal activity, none of that. But Trudeau seems to think, you know, that in his twisted, arrogant mind, that somehow, like I said, if you're protesting COVID, you know, you're breaking the law. I mean, I swear this guy just pulls his crap out of his ass, literally. So I'm going to post 3 videos in a row in here, without comment, of exactly what these people in Parliament were saying about him. Have a listen for yourself.
President, honourable members, we keep discussing here our European democratic values that underpin all of our actions. I worked in Syria and Pakistan for many years as a diplomat and therefore value democracy very highly. Now, the invitation to Canadian PM Justine Trudeau is an invitation to someone who's been trampling on democratic rights, who's been cracking down on people who protested against disproportionate corona measures, peoples who were supporting a non-sanctioned movement coming under criticism. So clearly the values of democracy are being despised by this individual. Let us not give someone like this any speaking time in this House of Democracy.
Poštovane kolege, dragi građani, premijeru Trudeau. Sloboda, pravo izbora, pravo na život i zdravlje, pravo na rad za mnoge od nas, to su temeljna ljudska prava za koje su milijuni građana Europe i svijeta položili svoje živote. Za obranu naših prava i prava naše djece, koje smo stjecali stoljećima, mnogi od nas, uključujući i mene, spremni smo riskirati vlastitu slobodu i položiti vlastite živote. Nažalost, danas su među nama i oni koji gaze te temeljne vrijednosti. Kanada, nekada simbol modernog svijeta, je pod vodstvom vaše kvazi-liberalne čizme proteklih mjeseci postala simbol kršenja temeljnih ljudskih prava i građanskih sloboda. Gledali smo kako konjima gaze žene, kako samohranim roditeljima blokirate bankovne račune, da ne mogu platiti djeci školovanje, da ne mogu platiti lijekove, da ne mogu platiti račune za struju i vodu, da ne mogu platiti rate kredita za svoje domove. Za vas su to možda liberalne metode. Međutim, za mnoge građane svijeta to je diktatura najgore vrste. Budite uvjereni da građani svijeta, udruženi, mogu zaustaviti svaki režim koji želi uništiti slobodu građana, bilo bombama, bilo štetnim farmaceutskim proizvodima. Hvala.
And with the Prime Minister of Canada, the way he's behaving right now, he's exactly like a tyrant, like a dictator. He's like Ceausescu in Romania. If even you doubt, if you raise doubts about the vaccines, you're outcasted. What's the difference between what he does and what happened under the Inquisition? See, on one side they say, well, we should not believe in God, but on the other side they say, believe in science. We don't have to. Science is not about belief. Science is about measurements, conclusions, hypotheses, and arguments. We got to a point right now where even if you say something, if you raise any doubts, you're already considered, as whatever, they label you in very different ways. This is not okay. And I have to tell you, that when I saw the protests in Canada, the way the truckers over there reacted, I got in touch with some of them, others contacted me. I congratulated them, and I want to use this opportunity to thank them. And I hope this movement for freedom and for rights is spreading all around the world. Because at the end of the day, we have to make sure that all these elected officials, they understand that they were elected in those offices to work for the people, not to behave like masters of slaves. Thank you.
Annie, I'll just
Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence.
I will now give the floor to Ms. Christine Anderson for her point.
Thank you. Based on Article 195, out that it would have been more appropriate for Mr. Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, to address this House according to Article 144, an article which was specifically designed to debate violations of human rights, democracy and the rule of law, which is clearly the case with Mr. Trudeau. Then again, a Prime Minister who openly admires the Chinese basic dictatorship, who tramples on fundamental rights by persecuting and criminalizing his own citizens as terrorists just because they dared to stand up to his perverted concept of democracy, should not be allowed to speak in this House at all. Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
Okay, so you've heard and seen the videos. Here's Trudeau sitting in his chair, looking all, prim and proper. I suppose, his boyfriends or whatever will appreciate him like that. But this is the jackass that Trudeau is. He comes in here thinking he's some great prime minister. Speaks as if he's the most articulate individual in the world, when in fact he's actually not. Yet people can see right through him. So I'm just going to say to you people, as my viewers, you know, this is the guy many people voted for. Seriously. And to vote for a guy like this, and this is the leader that we have going on the world stage representing this country. I mean, chimpanzees could do a better job than this guy. But here he is. And now he actually said that now, because he formed a coalition with the NDP party, which is really just a communist party of Canada, that he's going to stick around until 2025, at which time he wants to run for office again. Boy, if this is true, we are in some serious trouble. Let's get this guy out of office, please. Sooner rather than later. Thank you. Enjoy the videos, and see you in the next one.